As you've probably just heard, this meeting is being recorded, so if you want to change your name to something else at the top, please feel free. And we'll just give it a second, and then I think we are ready to go pretty much. If you pop your questions in the chat, I will work my way through as many as I can. Okay. Lovely. Okie dokie. So, hello, welcome everybody. For those of you that haven't been to one of these before, my name is Jo Southall. I am an independent occupational therapist, and I also live with hypermobile EDS and POTS, visual stress, and some other fun stuff as well. I am here this evening to basically answer any and all questions that I can from you and from anyone on social media and stuff as well. My specialist areas are things like fatigue management, pain, creative uses for mobility aids, assistive tech, splints and braces, all things bendy, basically. So hopefully we can work our way through. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat rather than raising your hand, if that's all right. Thank you. Lovely. So I've got a few pre-asked questions, so I'll start with those and then we can work through the chat after that. So I'm wondering if you have any advice. My daughter has hypermobility and has a boxing class once a week. She wears boxing gloves and has excruciating pain in her fingers during the session. The gloves hold her fingers round, but she needs to curl them for 45 minutes and they get sore. It's a very unique situation and she's just dealing with the pain, but wondered if you've come across any of these before or if you have any advice. Okay, so with pretty much anything exercise-based, my first bit of advice is always going to be pacing. I think a lot of the problems that hypermobile people have with exercise is that we don't tolerate extended periods of repetitive stuff very well. So particularly for an activity where you've got your hands in a fixed position for 45 minutes, that's a really long time. And people with bendy hands not going to tolerate that quite so well. So my first bit of advice would be actually schedule some breaks, take the gloves off and just stretch your hands out. Have a little bit of a fidget, get your circulation going. Make sure you're regularly putting your hands down because quite a lot of people with autonomic issues maybe don't have the best peripheral circulation. A lot of people with POTS or syncope disorders will notice they get quite cold hands or way too hot hands. And often having your arms up exacerbates that. So activities like boxing, where you've got your hands up in front of you, or you're just holding your hands on the steering wheel as well, for a lot of people, can lead to kind of naff circulation, basically. So movement is key and pacing is key. So as much as it might be disruptive and irritating to stop, take the gloves off, have a bit of a stretch, and then go back to it, I think over time that will be a much better way to get a quality of training in with minimal pain. Whereas pushing and pushing and pushing, you get to the 45-minute mark and you're in agony, is not a particularly like sustainable long-term approach to exercise. So definitely having a little bit of a break there is probably going to be quite useful. The other thing I would recommend would be compression gloves. So I know for some martial arts, you got like wrap your hands under gloves. I don't know if that, boxing isn't really my thing. But as an educated guess, if you're wrapping your hands, what you want is like consistent levels of compression. So you may find that compression gloves help with just supporting all of those joints and encouraging your hands into a nice neutral position. They may also help with the pain afterwards. I would also maybe recommend a referral to hand therapy. So hand therapy is kind of a specialist division of occupational therapy. So a hand therapist basically just deals with everything from like here upwards. That can include things like splints and braces, but it can also include things like exercises, strength building, range of motion testing, all kinds of stuff. So I think a hand therapist, just because it's such a niche area, and your hands are a really, really important part of human functioning, right? Like opposable thumbs are what set us aside from the rest of the critters. So yeah, having hand injuries and hand pain long term is really, really disruptive to a whole range of things. So I think a hand therapy referral would be sensible, just so that there's an opportunity to maybe speak to somebody who is a real specialist in hand function and just see if there's anything that they can recommend. But yeah, pacing would be my first and foremost thing as well. Yeah, I hope that's a little bit helpful. But yeah, trying to get your circulation as good as possible, taking lots of breaks would be my first bit of advice there. Okie dokie. My husband has hypermobility. I've suggested to my husband a walking stick may be helpful for when his knees go. However, my husband said that his hands hurt when using a walking stick. Are there any walking sticks that are better for hypermobility? Oh, this is such a common problem. It's a real challenge, I think, when you've got like a full body issue or like a most of your body issue where resting one bit of your body immediately causes a different bit to hurt for different reasons. So yeah, I think one of the things that would be sensible here would be to have a think about which areas of the hand and wrist are causing the pain. Is it a gripping issue? Is it a pressure issue? If it's a pressure issue, something as simple as using like a trekking pole rather than a walking stick might help, because you don't have your pressure and your hands in the same way. However, you can't lean quite so much of your body weight through. Whereas something like ergonomic gripped walking sticks, you can lean a bit more of your pressure through. What they have is, rather than a flat handle, they have a palm shaped kind of squished in bit, and it makes the walking sticks left and right hand specific. And because of that, you end up with a walking stick that molds to your hand rather than just cuts in across the middle of your palm. If you find that that approach works really well, it can drastically take the pressure off and make it a lot easier to use mobility aids. The downside is that you can't swap hands because the stick is left or right specific. So if you are out and about with one regular crutch, as an example, I do know some people who will swap the side they're using it on depending on which leg and which arm hurt most, or even like what other tasks they're undertaking. But with ergonomic grips, you can't do that quite so easily because they won't fit your other hand at all. I do still think it's worth it just in terms of hand function. What I would say is that walking sticks versus crutches, a walking stick tends to be a little bit more wobbly, and a crutch tends to be a little bit more stable. And you can also, generally speaking, lean a bit more of your body weight through a crutch without it feeling unstable. So I don't actually recommend walking sticks very often. The other benefit to crutches, particularly ones with like a forearm cuff, is that if you're at a checkout or if you are at like a supermarket or something and you're queuing, you don't have to find somewhere to rest your stick up against while you go for your wallet and pack your shopping, because it kind of still holds onto your arm a little bit. So it minimizes the chances that you're going to like knock your stick over. It'll clatter to the ground awkwardly and loudly, and a million people will try and help you with things in ways that aren't actually helpful. So generally speaking, I tend to recommend ergonomic grip crutches as the first point kind of walking aid, just because you can lean on them a bit more. There is the couple. My favorite one, I think, would be Smart Crutch. So these are slightly more at the pricey end of things, but Smart Crutches are angle adjustable. So what you can do is take it from a standard like upright crutch to a gutter crutch where the top of it leans flat. And what that means is that you're leaning all of your body weight through your forearm rather than through your hand and your wrist. And that makes for a dramatic reduction in like strain on your hands and wrists. A lot of people find it a lot more comfortable, and you can still use that if you actively have like a wrist injury, but you still need the mobility aid. Smart crutches also work at like all of the angles in between. So you can kind of have a hybrid sort of 45-degree angle where you are leaning on your forearm a bit, but most of your weight is through your hands still. This tends to be probably the most effective way because you're distributing your weight really effectively. So you can lean more of your body weight through that mobility aid without it hurting your hands. So yeah, definitely ergonomic grips would be the way to go. Cool crutches are a good one. There are a couple of like sort of a lot of like mobility showroom type places will sell ergonomic ones, but if you're looking for something a little bit fancier, Smart Crutch and Cool Crutches would be my top recommendations, I think. Okie dokie. So that's those two, and I'm going to go and have a look in the chat. Lovely. Thank you very much for doing these sessions. You're very welcome. Do you have any tips on driving with hypermobility affecting the hands, particularly left forefinger and thumb and right shoulder? So I don't drive. I've actually never driven a car. So a lot of this is educated guesses that I would encourage you to check with somebody who can drive, and experience of watching my hypermobile mum drive me around for years. One thing I would say is that there are also things called disabled driving centres, like they're a thing that exists. They are distributed fairly unevenly across the country. You might be a few hours away, but they might be able to help still. With the disabled driving centres, what they have is a series of basically specialist trained OTs, driving instructors, adaptation specialists. And the whole point of these centres is to keep disabled people on the road for as long as possible and as safely as possible. And they're a really good sort of resource to have a look at in terms of maybe things like steering wheel adaptations. There are an awful lot of different funky ways you can modify a steering wheel, whether that's with like the kind of driving knobs, or whether that's getting rid of the steering wheel and having like joystick controllers, or there's so many options out there. In terms of basic see you through, maybe while you go and get something like that looked into, my kind of first point of advice is very similar to the boxing thing, is pacing. So driving is another example of an activity where you tend to put your hands in a fixed position, particularly motorway driving, for a very long period of time. You don't move your hands, you don't really do much about it. And if you are moving your hands, it's to do something else rather than to actually rest them. So try to find repeat instances of things that will remind you to just move your hands and get your circulation going again. So it may be that every single time you see a speed camera, you just wiggle your fingers a little bit one at a time, just have a little bit of a stretch. Or every time you are overtaken by a motorbike or something, drop one hand down into your lap, just let your circulation drift back to your fingertips again, and then swap and do the other hand. These little things probably aren't going to make a significant difference in terms of your chronic hand function issues, but what they can do is cumulatively stop you from kind of adding all this extra, like RSI pain, you know, poor circulation, cramps, just pins and needles. It stops you adding preventable stuff on top of the chronic unavoidable stuff. So being really proactive with that is a sensible starting point. You may also find that ring splints are a useful thing to do. If you are kind of loitering in the chat there, let me know which bit of the finger it is. But if you find that you are prone to doing things with a slightly, let's say, odd grip, what we can find is that we are hyperextending things in accidental ways, particularly with your index fingers, because if you're leaning against something, what you may find is that you've got quite a lot of sideways strain on these joints here. And we don't necessarily notice this happening. What will normally happen is that we think we're fine, and then suddenly our hands really hurt in the evening. But all kinds of activities like opening jars or turning taps or carrying a lot of things, you know, we can put a lot of sideways pressure on our joints, and if our joints are particularly weak, that becomes a bit of an issue. So I'm just seeing if I've got any like ring splints lying around. Let's have a look. Okay. So what we can do with finger splints, from my stash of miscellaneous OT stuff, you can get something like this, just thermoplastic, or you can get fancy silver ones. What they do is basically prevent hyperextension. So as you can see, I can still move my finger straight and I can still make a fist. I can still do all the things I'm supposed to be able to do, but it's stopping the hyperextension in the joints that aren't supposed to go backwards, basically. What you may find is that, particularly if you are quite active with your hands, so if you do like a lot of arts and crafts, or you type a lot, as well as driving a lot, or you're using smartphones, that kind of thing, you may find that actually there are a lot of things you're doing throughout the day that are aggravating the hand pain. You just notice it when you're driving. And if we can calm down some of the other stuff and you can survive that better, you may get away with driving slightly more, you know, low pain sort of stuff. So I would see how that goes, but ring splints would be a good thing to look into. Ring splints by Zomil is my go-to because I like supporting other bendy people in business. But also, you know, if you do have access to a hand therapist, do speak to them because the thermoplastic ones are available on the NHS. The only issue I have, well, I have a couple of issues with the thermoplastic one. The first one is that they only come in beige, and it's not like a nice tan kind of color. It's like sad medical beige. But something about this particular color makes it completely invisible when you drop it on the floor. It doesn't matter what surface you drop it on. If you drop one, you're never going to find it unless you stand on it whilst looking for it. The other issue with these is that if you are particularly strong, but also hypermobile, so a lot of my patients who are rock climbers or musicians, particularly like pianists or violin players, they can still kind of bend the splint a bit because they're strong enough to do it. So you're hyperextending despite the splint. It's not really doing its job. Whereas I've never yet met anyone with good enough finger strength to bend a silver splint. So I do tend to recommend silver over thermoplastic, but obviously it is personal choice. But I do think that would be a sensible thing to have a look at. In terms of your thumb function, again, have a think about what area of the thumb it is, whether it's putting pressure on it, whether it's a twisting action, whether it's just that your hands are so exhausted by this point that everything hurts. Thumb braces, I would say get a referral to orthotics. There are some really, really nice ones out there, but they're not particularly cheap. One of the ones I recommend to an awful lot of hypermobile people, because we tend to have issues right here, the CMC joint. So Push Brace make a really nice CMC support splint that's safe to use with mobility aids. You can wash up in it and it's not going to disintegrate. And it's just generally pretty hard wearing. But other than that one, I think splints are a little bit hit and miss. So you're better off with an orthotics referral so that the orthotist can sort of work out what's going to meet your needs effectively. If you speak to your GP, they will be able to refer you to orthotics, hopefully fairly easily, and fingers crossed the waiting list isn't too bad at present. Okay. I've been struggling with a knee sprain from around a year ago and working with a physio to help as it keeps flaring up. Any suggestions that people can think of that they find useful to strengthen the inside medial of their knee and or prevent things from stop flaring again? That's an interesting one. Yeah, this is a difficult thing. I think that a lot of hypermobile people will find that like the road to rehab is not like a nice, smooth, straight line. Rehab is like going well, re-injured, going well, re-injured. What I would try to have a think about is maybe keeping a symptom diary so you can work out what it is that's going on that's causing these flare-ups. Because you may find there is a particular weekly activity that you do, or a task, or a change in the weather, or an exercise, or a particular pair of jeans, or something that is a correlation between all of these flare-ups. And if that's the answer, quite simply, it's just in the short-term rehabilitation process, avoid that thing as much as possible. You may also find that if there are like activities that are repeatedly contributing to you re-injuring yourself and these flare-ups, bracing for those activities and during those flare-ups might be sensible. So there's a lot of concern around splints and braces, particularly knee braces, with regards to deconditioning. And the prevailing thought is that the more your body becomes dependent on a splint or a brace to keep itself safe, the lazier your body will get. And that's kind of true, but also not being able to do activities safely and being injured constantly also cause deconditioning. So the compromise here is something called activity splinting, where what we do is have a look at what is it that you're doing and what's the risk analysis for that particular activity. So if there are tasks that you know have a high percentage chance of getting you injured and a low benefit in terms of muscle building and strength, splinting for those is really sensible. Whereas activities that are generally quite safe or are a really effective way to build muscle, don't brace for them. And you may find that if you can just stop these constant flare-ups, it will settle enough that you can get further with your rehab and hopefully it won't be a problem again. But yeah, it is a frustrating situation. So best of luck with that. I hope you get on well with your physio. Okay. I've just been diagnosed with hypermobility and arthritis on the spine. I've suffered for 15 years and finally got somewhere. I wanted to ask where I stand with living. I'm in a first floor flat and the stairs kill me every time. I don't know where to begin. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you are in like social housing or anything to that effect, or supported living, or yeah, any kind of like basically like assisted type situation. Sorry, brain fog. Yeah, supported housing. Is that what I was talking about? Yeah. Yeah, assisted living, council houses, like any kind of schemes like that. Your mobility should be taken into account with the types of buildings and types of homes that you are offered to stay in. So if you have now got a diagnosis or have developed a symptom that is making your current living situation problematic, it's worth asking for a reassessment and to get an occupational therapist or somebody to come and basically like have a look at your situation and see if it's whether it is an appropriate place for you to live anymore, because it kind of doesn't sound like it is. So I would go with that approach. If you obviously own your own home, there's not a massive amount that can be done for situations like that in terms of flats. If you're renting, you're very, very limited. If you own your own home, or it's sort of mortgaged or anything, social services might be able to help with some staircase adaptations, even if it's something as simple as just putting a second banister up, like a second handrail. Social services occupational therapy assessment is something that you can just ask for. If you speak to your GP, they'll be able to give you a phone number that you can call and self-refer to social services to have an occupational therapist come out and basically have a little snoop and see what they can offer. In the kind of short term, because I would imagine all of this stuff is going to take time, right? So in the short term, what I would say is refer yourself to physiotherapy. If you haven't seen a physiotherapist already, what they can do is work on building up the muscles and the strength and the skill for you to get up and down the stairs more easily and more safely, which will hopefully tide you over until you can get into a living situation that is a little bit more supportive and a little bit less exhausting. Yeah, I hope that helps. Likewise, if you are on the stairs and you feel like you are significantly at risk of falling, bum shuffle. It's not particularly dignified. It doesn't feel very classy, but you're much less likely to hurt yourself. So please stay safe. Okay. Please, could you help me decide what kind of power assist is best for me to use with an active chair? I have shoulder instability and pain, worse on the left side. The chair is being prescribed to manage chronic fatigue. MSK physio say they cannot help me with shoulder due to fatigue. I've trialed a manual chair without power assist and cannot manage to self-propel due to pain and fatigue. I don't know whether it's better to go for something heavier but joystick like an E-Fix, but we'll have to do transfers on my own, or something lighter that requires a fair bit of push, like a Phoenix front-wheel drive manual chair. I have POTS EDS. Fatigue is classed as clinically severe. I'm trying to avoid needing a full power chair, and the disruption that would require to my house isn't suitable. Okay, so power assist is an interesting topic. One thing I would say is if you are being prescribed a chair through the NHS, please, please, please check that you're actually allowed to put power assist on it. This was 2 wheelchairs ago now, so I've had 2 chairs since then, but the first custom-made chair I got from Wheelchair Services, basically the policy at the time was that you aren't allowed to put power assist on a NHS-provided chair, even if you're paying for it yourself. So I basically had to get permission from the local authority to put power assist on my NHS chair, which was a bit of a palaver, but it was granted eventually. So I would say just check, because if you spend all of that money on a power assist and then they go, no, you can't use it, or you're invalidating a warranty, blah, 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 it'll be a problem. Power assist comes in a couple of different options. Generally, like you said, E-Fix would be the option that is the least physical effort required to use the chair. It basically converts a manual chair to a power chair with a battery pack, and you just have a joystick mounted on one armrest or the other. What I would say is if you have an active user chair that doesn't have armrests, eFix is not really suitable because you need somewhere to mount a joystick, right? If you are looking at a chair that you want to be able to fairly easily convert from power assist to not, as an example, if you're only going around your own home or you've got like a hospital appointment that's really close to the door, you may not need it. Something like the Tri-Ride would potentially be a good option. So the Tri-Ride is kind of a motorbike adaptation that clips to the front of the chair and converts it to basically like a powered trike type thing, but like a wheelchair with a trike attachment. Tri-Ride comes in loads of different options now. There are also quite a lot of other companies who are now doing fairly similar things. Phoenix, I think, is one of them. If you, not Phoenix, Brain. Yeah. Tri-Ride is the kind of main one. Tri-Ride do a couple of different options. Some of them are a lot more off-roady and fast and quite adventurous. Some of them are fairly simple, like it will get you to and from the corner shop, but don't be expecting to go around a festival, that kind of approach, which is a pretty good option for a lot of people. The only downside to that is that if you've got something mounted on the front of your chair, to get in and out of your chair becomes a bit more difficult. So you do have to detach the entire thing to get out of your wheelchair, which if you're a part-time wheelchair user can be a problem. Or if you're in like a supermarket and you're used to being able to stand up to reach things on high shelves, it makes it a bit harder to do that. So pros and cons there. The other option you've got would be wheel hub based drives. So that would be your eMotion power assist, your oh my goodness, I should know all of these. eMotion, wheel drive. There's two more off the top of my head. I can't think of them. Basically, they replace the existing like drive wheels for your wheelchair with a powerized hub type situation. You would push these like normal, but the power assist could do up to sort of 80% of the work. So the same way that power steering works on a car, you are still pushing, but it's considerably easier and safer. You also don't have to have quite such a big range of motion. So if you've got restricted safe range of motion because of a shoulder injury, power assist wheels can still work for you. If you are looking at, there's a couple of them now. Autobot make one, I think. Oh, I need to Google these. Basically, some of them have like a switch system in, so that if you just push the hub forwards or backwards and keep pushing it forwards without re-gripping and doing a new push, it will just continuously go forwards, which makes it much easier to get up slopes. The newer version of the eMotion and also the Twion, also by Alba, now both come with a remote control option. So there are two things I like about this. The first one is that it means you've got a power chair controllable by smartphone, which is awesome. The second option for people who are prone to falling over, such as myself, is that if you are out of your chair and you stack it and injure yourself, if you are within a reasonable distance of your wheelchair and you have your phone with you, you can drive your chair towards you and use it to climb up off the floor with, which is super helpful. So these would be a good hybrid option because it means that you do have the power assist, so you are getting the kind of muscle building type activity. You are still moving. They are taken on and off the chair, and they're a lot lighter than they used to be. So it's a good option for people that actually have to put stuff in the boot themselves. It doesn't restrict your ability to get in and out of your chair. But equally, if you are struggling with a shoulder injury, you can just drive it by the like phone app, basically. So I'm guessing that doesn't really answer your question as to, can you help me decide what kind of power assist is best? The only way I ever tell people to decide this is to try them all and see. There are some power assist options. Smart Drive is one of them. So Smart Drive fits on the back of the chair and kind of gives you an assisted push once it's worked out where you're going. I hated it. It just felt completely lacking in intuition. It did not mesh with what my brain wanted to do to make it work. I just couldn't get on with it at all. And yet somebody I know who has very, very similar symptoms to me, very similar diagnoses, absolutely loves hers. It's been a life-changing thing for her. So unfortunately, the only thing I can really say is try them and see. If you are kind of mostly sort of housebound type thing, or you mostly spend your time at home, there are a couple of companies that will now bring things to your house for you to try. So I would recommend having a look at some of the bigger online mobility retailers, just to see if they're still doing home visits and trials, just because it would presumably be much easier than trying to find all of these things to actually test out. But yeah, I think unfortunately you have to sit in it to know what's going to work for you, unfortunately. Okay, cool. Ooh, I just scrolled. Sorry, the chat's doing the weird jumpy thing. I wonder if you have thoughts about whether smart crutches or cool crutches as brands are good for long-term use on a daily basis. I am thinking of buying a pair to see if there are any better than for weight bearing on my wrists than sticks. One has an ordinary grip wooden handle and the other a fisher handle. What are the pros and cons of each of these stick types from your experience? Mine are needed for hip subluxation support. Okay, yeah. So I kind of covered some of this earlier, I think, but I definitely would say they're a significant upgrade from just a regular walking stick, and also an upgrade from a stick with a fisher grip. Cool crutches, I think, are a little bit lighter weight. I also think they're a bit cheaper, maybe, but probably not by much. Smart crutches, the complaint a lot of people have about them is that they're quite bulky and they're quite kind of plasticky. They also, surprisingly, for being made of plastic, are quite heavy, whereas cool crutches tend to be a bit lighter weight. However, Smart Crutch does allow you to rest a lot more of your weight through your forearms. So it's really kind of a toss up between whether wrist pain, hand pain, and wrist instability is a bigger issue for you than the weight of that crutch. So I think those are your main kind of deciding factors to think about, as well as obviously things like budget. Yeah, basically, I think those are good brands for long-term use. I know a lot of people who use both. My personal vote, just taking into account the fact that hypermobile people have a tendency for transient wrist injuries, would be for smart crutches, I think. But if you, generally speaking, have fairly stable wrists and minimal hand pain, then cool crutches should be absolutely fine for you, no problems. But yeah, the other thing I would say for hip subluxation is if you haven't been to orthotics, I would strongly recommend going to orthotics. So, sorry, speaking of hip, there are a couple of companies in the UK, 3 of them now, who make custom-made compression garments designed specifically for your body. And what they can do is build in support around the areas of your body that experience instability. So if you are, as an example, struggling with hip subluxation, you basically would end up with a pair of shorts or leggings made that have reinforcement panels. In fact, let me just get some. There we go. So you have like single layers of Lycra where you don't need support, and then extra layers sewn in where you need extra support. And what you can do with these is really encourage your hips to go into a nice neutral position. And you can basically offer a little bit of support and postural encouragement so that your body is using the correct movements and the correct muscles while you're walking. These were the thing that finally got me out of regular hip subluxations. After 5 years of plateaued physiotherapy, I got myself a set of compression shorts, custom made. And that was the thing that really, really helped me. And every time I have a significant hip related setback, these are my go-to, get me over the plateau I hit at physio type approach. So custom made compression garments would be a strong suggestion. Orthotics via the NHS would be the route to access those if they sound like the sort of thing that might help you. The companies that make them are DM Orthotics, Job Skin, and Allard UK. So Allard have also brought out a slightly less bespoke one aimed specifically at hypermobility. And DMO have launched a off-the-shelf range as well if you don't go down the bespoke kind of custom fitted route. But yeah, basically it works out as being kind of a combination of like Spanx and full body kinesiology tape. So if that sounds good to you, then maybe custom compression is the way to go. Okay. Okie dokie. Is it common, Jo, to exacerbate hip problems and pain when beginning to use shoe inserts? In this case, heel lifts for Morton's neuroma and sesamoiditis. Prescribed by a podiatrist, should we just persevere or wait for advice from them? Next appointment is 2 months' time on the NHS. Okay, so yes, in short. And it's a real bugbear of mine that podiatrists don't warn you that this is going to happen, because it does almost every single time. So what we're doing with heel lifts or shoe inserts or custom made orthotics is changing the way your feet make contact with the ground. And what that does is change the alignment for all of your joints and muscles the entire way up your body. So the appropriate way to start using shoe inserts is for you to wear them for an hour without walking in them, just sitting or standing in them to start with. And I would say do that for a week. And when you can comfortably do an hour a day and it's not causing a flare up, then you can start thinking about wearing them for 2 hours a day. And you can wander around a little bit. I would say you're looking at about 4 or 5 weeks worth of building up, maybe even a month, to build up to the point where you take your shoe inserts with you for a full day of work or a full day out of the house. If you have not been informed of the fact that shoe inserts are quite likely to flare up the rest of your joints, I would maybe have a teensy bit of concern about just how hypermobile aware your podiatrist is. So I saw a new physiotherapist recently, and she was very clear on the fact that I was probably going to feel worse before I felt better. And that was how I knew I could trust her to get me to that point. But yeah, so generally speaking, yes, that's quite a common thing. It is an irritating thing. What you may find is that if you slow down this progression phase and you really do ease yourself in, and you still cannot get over this flare up and it's really upsetting your body, what you need to do is have a smaller adjustment made to start with. So it may be that if you're going from like no inserts to a fairly significant insert, you need to do like a halfway measure, get used to that after about a month or two, and then gradually build up to the next one. So I would, if you're not doing the whole like really severely paced approach to orthotics, I would start doing that. If that still doesn't work, go back to your podiatrist and say that the adjustment is probably just too big. So what you'll need to do is have a halfway measure, get used to that, and then go the rest of the way to get you to the point where you're in the appropriate prescription for your needs. Does that make a bit of sense? I hope that makes sense. But yes, in short, it's probably going to be unpleasant, and I'm sorry you have to go through it, but my hope is that it will be worth it in the long run and you'll get some symptom relief. What you might like to try is just wearing like Spanx or compression shorts or compression leggings, just to give your hips a little bit of support while you're doing this adjustment phase. You may also find that using mobility aids short term is beneficial, just because it can make your balance a little bit sketchy as well, having your feet in radically different positions. This all makes me think of the first time I got knee braces, and I went to go for a walk after building up to using them gradually, and fell in a hedge when I tried to walk around a corner, because I hadn't realized that I didn't know how to do corners now without having to like twist my knees as I did it. So now that I could no longer do the cheaty bendy movements, I hadn't yet worked out how to do safe like regular movements. So you may find that this adjustment phase is particularly difficult. You may also find that there are activities that you're now doing differently because your feet and ankles are in different positions, and it's the activities that are the problem. So if you commonly experience pain, as an example, after walking, get a video of yourself walking and just watch it back in slow motion and see if you can spot anything being a little bit suspiciously wonky, sidewaysy kind of stuff. Because it may just be that you need a little bit of physiotherapy to go along with it to basically retrain your body how it's supposed to work in this new position. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay. Ooh. Oh yeah, follow up to the fingers and thumbs question earlier. Yeah, ring splints probably aren't going to work well for this joint, but you might find compression gloves are useful, and you can get those with or without grippy dots on the palm. So have a think about whether you, as you're driving, typically tend to let go and release your hands, or whether you tend to slide your hand around the wheel. Because if you slide your hand around the wheel, you probably don't want grippy compression gloves. Whereas if you tend to be a re-grasping person, grippy ones might be quite nice. But yeah, see how that goes. Ooh. Sorry, the chat's doing the weird flicky around strappy thing. Help. Okay, let's just scroll awkwardly. I am hypermobile. I've been having severe neck pain. Are there any pillows you can recommend? I also need recommendations for tennis elbows and pelvic floor braces. Okay, it sounds like you need a referral to orthotics, honestly. Pillow-wise, it is quite difficult. One of the things that makes pillows a particular problem is that it's not just your neck and shoulders you need to take into account. As an example, if you're a side sleeper but you've got naturally quite broad shoulders, you're basically looking to fill this gap in with pillows so that you're not sleeping like this, right? So depending on how you sleep, you're going to need different arrangements of pillows, different shapes, different levels of support. My advice is always the same. See if you can find somewhere with a load of different pillows, places like Dunelm Mill or even like bed shops. Block out like a good 2 or 3 hours of your day, go to the shop and just have 10-minute laydowns on a load of different kinds of pillow and see what feels good. And I would say 10 minutes is like the minimum, because you can't, sometimes your instant gut response when you lay on something is not sure about this, but actually after a few minutes it feels really nice. So that tends to be my advice there, because it's very much dependent on where your pain is, why your pain is the way it is, but also your kind of skeletal structure, your body shape, your body type, all that kind of stuff. So it's not really something I can answer in a sort of this sort of setting. In terms of tennis elbow and pelvic floor braces, so tennis elbow, mostly it would be the fairly simple, just like a strap that goes round the top of your forearm type area. With any of this stuff, I generally recommend an orthotics referral, just because the good splints and braces can be eye-wateringly expensive. I've seen a tennis elbow brace that looks really good that also blocks elbow hyperextension. Looks fantastic, but it's over £100. So yeah, orthotics referral from your GP is a sensible thing to try. Generally, a lot of the tennis elbow braces, pretty much the only difference is in color and size. So what you're looking for is something that very closely matches your body measurements. A lot of the sporty braces are designed with athletic male body shapes in mind. Whereas if you're not, you know, Andy Murray shaped, you may find that the gaps in like the different sizing are a little bit off. So even if it's just like a similar thing, if you're like borderline between sizes, or it just doesn't kind of match your body shape or type, shop around a bit and see if you can find somewhere the change in size is at a different threshold, and that will hopefully be helpful. In terms of pelvic braces, custom-made compression shorts generally are your best option if you've got widespread hip, pelvic, and lower back instability. For a lot of hypermobile people, what you actually get is sacroiliac instability, which is the bit where your spine joins your pelvis. And that's supposed to be a relatively fixed joint. The only time it's supposed to be a little bit stretchy is when you're actively giving birth. But for hypermobile people, it tends to be a little bit less fixed and a little bit more subluxating and wobbly. For sacroiliac braces, the SI belts are your best option, Now, the difficulty with SI belts is that they have a tendency to ride up the minute you sit in them, lean over in them, do anything in them, and you have to like re-velcro yourself every time you get up, and it's a pain in the butt. Literally a pain in the butt sometimes from the SI joint pain. The one that I recommend now above all others is called the Sacrofix. And the Sacrofix is basically an SI belt, but it's velcroed to a pair of Lycra hot pants. So what that does is make sure that it actually stays in place when you're sitting down, standing, leaning over. It's brilliant for things like gardening, where you've got a lot of changes in position and you're up and down a lot. So that would be a good one to have a look at if we're talking about like sacroiliac instability. But yeah, it depends what exactly is going on with your whole pelvis setup. So I would say orthotics is probably the place to go and get some advice for there. Okie dokie. Okay. Do smart crutches help with shoulder pain? I use crutches with no weight bearing one leg. My shoulders are in dire condition and I have a bespoke chair coming soon. Just wondering for the days I use crutches if a change from NHS style ones would help. Almost certainly. Anything that's labelled as NHS style, I would generally consider to be the worst option available. Yeah, NHS crutches. Like my hands hurt just looking at them. Like it makes my whole body just tense up in pain. Smart crutches would probably be a significant step up from those, just because you're distributing weight a lot more evenly. If you're not trying to protect your hands and protect your wrists, you don't tense your upper body quite so much either. Whereas if you know that an activity is going to cause you pain, you go into that activity prepared for it to hurt. So you're in kind of protective tensed up mode, and that will almost certainly aggravate your shoulders, your neck, your upper back. So I would say yes, it is worth looking at. Things like smart crutches, they're a little bit marmitey. Like some people love them, some people try them and they just don't like the weight or the feel of them or something. So it's always worth keeping an eye out for like mobility aid reselling groups on Facebook and eBay as well. But if you were to email Smart Crutch and just say, I don't know whether they work for me or not, can I try some? They might even have like a loaner set. That might be a thing that they do now. So don't ask, don't get, basically. But yeah, I think that would be a significant kind of step up in terms of shoulder support. Yes. Lovely. How do you get an orthotics referral for DMO via the NHS, please? My GP wouldn't do one. He said there's no budget for these kinds of orthoses. That's a problem. Yeah, I mean, there is a budget. I got a referral for one less than a month ago. I would be inclined to drop my favorite phrase ever there, which is when you're in an appointment with a GP and they've refused a referral on the grounds of whatever reason, could you please document that you've refused my referral? Because what that does is make them think very carefully about the fact that as soon as they write that down, they're liable for anything that happens to you as a result of you not getting that referral. And it's just a really nice way to remind healthcare professionals that we are, in fact, accountable for what happens to our patients. So a second opinion would be a sensible thing to have a look at here. I would also see whether you can get a referral from somebody else. As an example, if you're under a senior physiotherapist, they can probably refer you. Pain management specialists can also refer. Anyone associated with orthopedics would also potentially be able to refer. What I've done for people in the past is basically I write a request because I am certified DMO fitter. I got that not because I think I'm ever going to fit anyone for it, because I'm not. I got that so that I could argue more effectively with people's GPs. So if that's something that you really need, like, and your GP is just not listening, I can try and write a letter that might convince them to do it. And hopefully that would be, a useful thing to do. I can't refer direct because I'm not part of the NHS, but I can hopefully convince people that they should refer. But yeah, physiotherapy, if you've got a physiotherapist, they probably could do it as well. Rheumatology might even be able to do it. Yeah. I don't get why that's a problem, because yes, like custom orthotic stuff is expensive, but so is dealing with all of the injuries that you get as a result of not having it. Yeah, that feels like a cop-out answer to me. So I would be inclined to go back and ask for a second opinion, ask to speak to the practice manager, and get your friendly neighbourhood occupational therapist to write you a kick-ass letter that will hopefully get taken seriously. That would be the way to go, I think. Yeah, the design on NHS crutches hasn't changed in over 40 years. Anyone go back further? Smart crutches are heavier, which is worth factoring in if you need to carry them. Yeah, they are heavier. They're quite significantly heavier, actually. But yeah, it is, I think, worth it if you've. It's worth it for me because, like, strength wise, I'm not too bad off, but instability wise, my wrists are useless. So for me, that toss up benefit. Whereas if weakness and like resistance to carrying heavy things is a significant issue for you, but you're less unstable, cool crutches might be a better option. Yeah. Yeah, since refusing my DMO request in January, I'm now getting higher enabling payments waiting for my chair. Go figure. Yeah, it's almost like proactive healthcare is a really useful way to stop us all from being financial drains on the NHS because we haven't got into completely avoidable severe medical situations. That is a soapbox I've spent a lot of time on. It is a hill I will die on. I am constantly frustrated by the way the NHS does not think proactively and instead prefers to be reactive with patient groups like us. When we know we're going to fall apart, we can see it coming a mile off. Yeah, sometimes I think laying that out can be useful. So just explaining that the knock-on result of you not getting this one very simple referral is that you're now getting increased funding, support, and demand need from 3 or 4 other departments. And it's also had XYZ impact on your, presumably physical health, but also your mental health, your emotional well-being, your pain tolerance. How many painkillers are you taking now? Is it more than it was before? If so, we then need to start thinking proactively about kidney function because none of us will last forever. So I think that cost benefit analysis, if you can really explain the bigger picture effectively, it's much easier for a healthcare professional to make a sensible decision about that. Whereas GPs in particular, I do not envy at all, because how many of us have stuff going on in our daily lives that we haven't told our GPs about? I know I do. And I'm the one going into appointments going, oh, yes, we should keep our GPs up to date. But I haven't done it myself in a few months. So, quite often your GP is trying to make a decision without the full picture about what your entire life looks like, about what the input you're getting from other people. So if you're seeing a physio privately and your GP doesn't know you're in physio, then how does that affect their decision making with regards to other referrals, with regards to anti-inflammatory prescriptions, with regards to pain relief as an option? So I think sometimes it's worth just writing an update letter to your GP that just says, here's what's going on in my life. I'm not expecting you to fix it all, but you should at least know about it and it needs to be documented. So that when you're putting them on the spot with a can I have this type decision, they've actually got the information they need to make that an effective clinical decision. But it's a very difficult one. And I think the way that appointments are set up where you've only got like 15-20 minutes, it's not an ideal situation. So sometimes writing a letter and at the end of the letter saying, and next week I'm going to make an appointment to discuss this, it makes sure that your GP has read something before you then go and do it. And if you get to that appointment and they haven't read it, just say, well, I'll wait. Call me back when you have read it. And just make them do it. And then hopefully that will, get that bigger picture across a little bit better. Okay, I think that's all of the questions, isn't it? Let me just double check my various lists. Yep, I think we're all good. I think we are all good. We have only got 5 minutes left, but if anyone else has any other questions, do sneak them into the chat. Oh, just a thank you. No, lovely. I quite like finishing with no questions. So, oh, what's going on now? Oh, thank you, messages. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really like doing these sessions. So please do come again. I'm here the 3rd Thursday of every month at 7 o'clock for an hour. I do occasionally bring special guests with me. So if there is anyone that you would particularly like me to bring, if there are specialties that you really want to learn from, if there's anyone you're really interested in hearing from, please do let me know, and I will see if I can bully them into coming on here to chat to you all. I really hope this has been a useful evening. So, you know, come back next time. If there's anything you want to speak to me privately about, please do drop me an email as well, or like a Facebook message or something. And yeah, any feedback is welcome. Thank you very much. A physio, please. Lucy, I'm on it. I will see what I can do.
So just before you go, could you type in your email address so people can contact you, please?
Yeah, that's probably a sensible idea, isn't it?
Thank you, lovely.
Everyone in meeting. Oh, can't even spell my own name. Therapy.co.uk. There we go.
Oh, Link Fairy got you back as well.
Thank you. Oh, it's always nice when somebody else knows your email address better than you do. Fabulous. All right, I think that's it for this evening then. Thank you all very much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your month, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you.